Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by renowned mindset expert turned consciousness expert, author, and spiritual teacher, Howard Falco. Thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
We have a lot of questions, and I'm probably going to go off on a bunch of tangents, but that's okay. You said you're willing to
Yeah,
answer whatever. So,
anything.
Howard, what inspired your shift from being a mindset and empowerment expert to becoming a consciousness expert?
So, both of those were actually inspired by a personal experience that I went through, a transpersonal experience, an expansion of consciousness that I went through in my 30s. I had been a lifelong seeker of insight and understanding. I always wanted to know what where meaning came from, what our purpose was, what the meaning of life was. And so I was a deep seeker since, well, it was really since the age of 14 when, I looked up at the stars for the very first time on a camping trip and couldn't believe what was above my head. And then that was there every single night. And it sort of sparked these deep questions about the nature of existence and life. And in my 30s, I was at a place where I thought I had everything that made me content and happy, but yet I still had this deep guttural yearning to understand more about life. And I couldn't reconcile a lot of the imbalances and differences around the world with people and suffering and joy and wealth and disparity. And so I was in deep need of insight, and I had a breakthrough in my 30s that revealed way more than I ever thought I would ever come to understand about the nature of existence. And that's what created the shift and caused me to write my first book. And then I went out and started to demonstrate this understanding in the work that I was doing with individuals on the mind, in sports, in everyday life. And that led to this whole journey of a teacher in consciousness.
Oh, I love that. And we're definitely going to talk about your book, Invincible, but I do have a couple more questions before we get there. So you just kind of brought that up. You've worked with athletes, CEOs, and people from all walks of life. How does the path to infinite potential remain universal despite our diverse life journeys?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing in life. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO of the biggest company in the world or an athlete at the top level or someone who's just trying to have a better relationship with their significant other or find peace in their daily walk of life.
Yeah.
We all have access to that same field of infinite potential that we can open our minds to, learn how to connect with, and then learn how to shape the way that we think, feel, and perceive in a way that moves what I call the needle of probability in our favor for the next set of conditions that are going to give rise to our next experience. So there's a process that every human being has access to. It's just some intuitively know it better when they're born, some learn it throughout their lifetime, and some have to go through a little bit more suffering until a podcast like this shows up and says, hey, it's all here for you.
So true.
But that's what's so exciting is that it reaches your ears finally, and you're like, wow, the universe is talking to me, is hearing me, is listening to me. So
Absolutely. It's
that's what's
so
exciting.
true. It is so exciting because it's so true. We all have the power within us. It's just a willingness to look within and to be able to tap into it and access it. And
Yeah, to
I
learn
like how
how
you,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book, Invincible. You teach that our optimal state isn't just mindset, but a consciousness game. Can you maybe explain how consciousness and mindset differ in achieving our highest potential?
So your consciousness is the framework of your understanding and awareness about who you are and how life is connecting to you. And as you learn more about that connection and how life is divinely connected to you in terms of what unfolds for you creatively, your consciousness expands and you understand and you see a greater version of yourself. When you see a greater version, meaning more possibilities for you, more worth, more acceptance, more compassion, more love, your mindset changes. And it's like a circular pattern where now you have much more love you're sending out to the universe or to other people, or you're in a more graceful or grateful state of mind. And that is conducive towards life showing you, I'm going to use a biblical term, an older term, but showing you favor. And
Mm,
favor means it's just the winds and the tides are shifting in a way where life is helping move you towards that new understanding and that new belief. So if before you were confused, you didn't understand, you thought life was against you, you had a negative idea and a negative mindset, life was fulfilling that idea. But as you shift to see how your thoughts and your feelings and the way you look at yourself have an impact on your reality, now life can shift to a completely different way of treating you back with insight and understanding.
Yeah.
And so that's how consciousness is related to mindset. The greater your awareness grows, that's why self awareness is the key to life,
Mm,
the more powerful your mindset becomes on a daily basis. And that feeds this beautiful cycle of love and gratitude and acceptance and flow and synchronicity and
right.
serendipity.
And
That all
everything. I
begins to
mean,
flow. Yes.
so what I like is that you kind of talk about, and this is definitely for our listeners today, is that you mentioned connecting to our highest inner self as the first step. For those that might be unfamiliar, how can someone begin to recognize and connect with their highest self?
So the question, the way they can connect with their highest self is to learn to be conscious of when the thoughts they have are limiting them.
Mm,
Because your highest self is infinite. It
right,
has no limits in terms of what's possible, in terms of what you can create, in terms of your abundance, all these buzzwords in spirituality. But you have to become conscious of where your mind has been patterned or learned or nurtured into limiting that expansive state.
right,
And most people are so unconscious, they allow those thoughts to just affect their state of mind, affect their state of being, their choices, and their actions. But those that are truly wake up, or the real term of what woke means, is really understanding how much your energy affects what happens next for you. They start to be more conscious of their worth, the fact that they matter in this world. I have a quote in my first book, I Am, that says, "Your existence as matter is the self-evident truth that you matter."
right,
You're here, you matter. It's not a question of if you matter. What it comes down to when you wake up is, how am I going to choose? Use that power to choose how I'm going to matter to myself, to others, what kind of energy I'm going to share with the world on a daily basis. And so that's how it's connected. That's how you find that more of that unlimited, more expansive consciousness self, is you become hyper aware of the way you're thinking and feeling about yourself, and you're willing to challenge it. You're willing to challenge it.
it's so true. And you're kind of like touching on this, and this is a kind of an off topic question, is that, you know, the energy that we present to ourselves and to others, it matters. And how you move into the day and how you carry yourself. Like, do you find that a lot of people are unaware with your energy matters and how you are perceiving yourself and others? Do we need to take a pause?
No, no. Are you saying that how people are unaware of how much they matter in the world, or
No, no, no. I'm saying that. So yes, I do feel like a lot of people are unaware of like they matter, and you kind of talked about that in your book, like how you just said that you do matter because you are existing. But no, I
so?
feel that the energy that we carry and how we are an energetic body. Because yes, I'm a human having I'm a soul having a human experience, but my energy and how I carry my energy and how that affects others. I don't think a lot of people are aware of your frequency is and how that affects others.
No, millions are not aware.
Right.
They
Sorry, that
don't.
was
They
a
don't
really
have any.
convoluted like statement to get to where I wanted. But I don't think people are
No, that
aware of like how you act, and it's really your energetic body and how that affects others.
right. It's but your energetic body is a result of your perception of yourself,
Correct.
and what most people don't have is self-awareness.
Right. What you said is so important.
Right. And the reason they don't have self-awareness is because they're in too much fight or flight
Mm,
in their daily life, looking for survival, looking for the fact that they matter, looking for the fact, or self-conscious about being limited in some way and having to try and avoid that feeling of being limited, which causes them to lack self-awareness. And when you peel that onion back another layer, what happens is you find out that the way that their identity was built through their nurturing, through the experiences they had as a child or in their teens, or even through some genetic expression that's affected them, is that it's all come together to create this identity that's caused them to struggle every day with who they are. And that causes a lack of self-awareness and presence. So the more you come to an understanding of what's true about you versus what's been nurtured into you, or what's felt natural to you in a negative way, or what somebody said to you, the more you wrap your arms around yourself, the more peace you find, the more present you get. And that presence brings the self-awareness to allow you to take control of your daily experience.
I find that there are a lot of people that struggle with being present. They're either living in the past or they're focused on the future. So by bringing this self-awareness, and you talk about going to your heart to access this, infinite potential, how do you coach people or help people to become more present in like their day to day so that they can tap into this self-awareness and this infinite potential?
So let's be clear that thinking about the past in a positive way with beautiful memories or places that made them feel good or relationships or people is a positive thing. There's
Of
nothing wrong
course.
with that. And then planning for the future and having some vision or idea of what you want to do, nothing wrong with that at all.
Agree.
It's when you hang on to the past from one of what I call in the book the three poisons of the mind, which are guilt, shame, and regret.
Mm.
When you hang on to the past with that, that causes you to be stuck in time, and it pulls from your creative ability. If you project fear into the future, you're also stuck in time that doesn't exist. So to answer your question, how do I get people to be more present? I help them to reflect on the past in a way that helps them find peace with the past, in a way that helps them look at a previous version of themselves where they see the perfection of that version of themselves. Not that they condone the act or they want to do it again, but they see that that was the best they had at that moment. And they also see, and this is just a general statement, you're never who you were 5 years ago, 5 weeks ago, 5 minutes ago. You're who you decide to be right now. And that's the greatest gift life gives you, is that ability to demonstrate who you want to be right now. And so I help them to disconnect from anything that hurts the intention of what they're trying to create now. And if it's involving guilt, shame, and regret, and that's what's causing them to hang on, then we work on it until peace is made with the past. And then we work on the fear piece for the future, a future that hasn't happened yet. Because fear in the future is saying there's a trillion, it's an infinite number of possibilities that can unfold. My mind's going to take me to the worst. Why? For
Yeah.
what purpose is that serving? And so I get them to see that there's a field of unlimited possibilities. And actually, the more you see that, the more the needle of probability moves towards what you want it to be. And so we work on that. And slowly but surely, that moves a human being more to a state of presence. And then they're more at peace with themselves and they're more in the moment.
That's so important. I like that you do touch on it's okay to look at the past, it's okay to look at the future, but you don't want to get stuck on either realm of that. So I do like that you talk about
Right, yeah,
that.
but there's nothing wrong. Some people say, "Oh,
No.
you have to be in the now. You can't, past and future don't exist, and there's only." Yeah, okay, that's great and that's true,
Well,
but
how do
there's
I
nothing
reflect
wrong
and
with.
change?
It reflect and change, or just why can't I think about a memory from high school that I loved when I hear a piece of music from the '80s? Well,
Right.
now I'm dating myself, but
It's true. I listen to the 80s music and I'm like, yeah, let's go. Girls just want to have fun. Like, come
yeah,
on.
there you go. But it brings you to a time that was joyful and open. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Or why can't you envision a future that's joyful? So there's nothing wrong with living at times in your mind in the past or the future. It's just when it's negative,
Right.
that's when it really tears away from an invincible mindset, from the ability to really use today in this moment and the mindset you have now to be hopeful, optimistic, and to encourage yourself to move to new thoughts and actions.
Yeah, absolutely. So your book also discusses navigating setbacks with peace of mind. What would you say to someone who's feeling deeply stuck right now, believing that there's no way out?
So there's always a way out. There's always a way out. Um, And they wouldn't be listening to this podcast if they didn't believe that, right?
Good point.
So
This
yeah,
would not be for them.
right, exactly. As long as your mind is open to new information, there's always a way out. Now, the way through to the way out might not be something that people want to go through or face, but the quicker you face the truth and work through it, the quicker you can escape your current circumstance and you can begin to create something new. But it can't be done from denial. Denial creates time. So you have to accept the truth of what is, but also know in the next moment everything can change by that acceptance and by finally embracing it and by finally moving from what the truth is now. Because if you deny a circumstance at work that you hate, that you know is not going to take you where you want to go, then you're just going to be there another 3 years. But if you accept this is not going to work, and then you start putting feelers out there or getting your resume together or start working on your own self and feeling confident about what you can achieve in the world and that you will find something new, and you start to work in that direction, something new can emerge. But it can't when you're in denial about what's going on, because then you won't move. It freezes you. Denial freezes you.
Absolutely. I do find that you can run across where you might have your head in the sand because you don't want to look at something. You're in denial, you're in a fear mode, and it's hard to get out of that. So if somebody
Can
is
be.
stuck, like if somebody is stuck in that kind of, like you said, fight or flight or denial, head in the sand, how do you navigate somebody out of that kind of that energy or that mindset?
So how I do that is I show them that by accepting the truth of what is, that will be their escape hatch to what can be. And so they have to trust and have faith, because the question is, what is your intent really? So a
Right.
person in that state, do you want to be here 5 years from now? Do you want to be in this relationship? Do you want to be in this job? Do you want to be in the same mental state that you're in now? Or are you willing to take a step into the unknown, trusting that it's going to move you closer to what you want? So it has to come from their will. Like they have to have a strong enough will to do it. And again, there's no pressure. I don't want anybody to think there's any pressure to change, because everybody has free will over how they run their life.
Right. And some
And
people
so if they're
like
not
that.
ready,
Somebody like it.
well, that's an interesting statement, Rachel, because you're right. Some people like their identity is comfortable in the chaos. Their
Right.
identity is comfortable in the negativity. But again, so the will to change has to be 1% greater than the will to stay there. But once it is, the universe will help you, move you towards something different. Will it be uncomfortable for a little bit? Yep. Nobody can avoid faith. Nobody can avoid going through the unknown. The child has to go through the birth canal, leave the womb, and go through the birth canal and struggle and fight into going into a place it has no clue where it's going. It knows that it was nourished and comfortable and sound, and it has to break through to achieve a new experience of life. And it's the same metaphor for anybody. To be, quote, reborn, so to speak, we have to go through that unknown and fight through it until we get to the other side.
So, what role does forgiveness play in achieving a mindset of infinite potential?
Great question. So, when you don't forgive yourself, you're saying woulda, coulda, shoulda. Woulda, coulda, shoulda is denial and lie, because there only is what you did. And so, if you don't forgive yourself, you're going to feel regretful. You're going to feel shameful. You're going to feel guilty. And if you state those things in your mind, I am shameful, I am regretful, I am guilty, life has no choice but to help you create those I am statements again. So you're going to be in another situation to give you the validation of that truth. So you are bound by your mind and your thoughts. And when you don't forgive, you're bound by that lack of forgiveness. And your future and the field of possibility is limited. Because when you don't forgive, you don't feel worthy. When you don't feel worthy, you cannot not only see possibility for yourself, but the universe can't grace you with possibility. So this is how important forgiveness is, to be able to see that you are not who you were, you're who you decide to be right now. If that version of you 3 years ago could have, would have, or should have done differently, it would have. There is no other truth than that. That's who you were. It is not who you are. Liberate yourself now by that understanding. and forever leave that version in the past and start today as the first day of the rest of your life.
I like that.
So, yeah.
I
So
like
that's
that.
what forgiveness really is.
I like that. I like that because it brings me to maybe a moment in my past. I'm like, wow, that was the only version I was able to be at that moment.
There's no other truth than that. If there
Yeah,
is, I'm open to hearing it. Well, I
right.
should have done this. Really? Why didn't you? Well, I mean, there's a whole section in the book where I go through that in these
I love that.
conversations with people in Invincible to show you
Yeah,
each person had a different idea of what they should have done, and they come to the conclusion that, wow, I guess that's just who I was. Now I get to choose. And if I unhook that regret and that shame and that guilt and leave it and start to honor myself now, what can be for me?
right. That's it. Almost takes off the pressure off of you. Like it's like, and how do you move
Completely.
forward? It's
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
again, you're not
liberating.
absolving. It's really liberating, and you're not absolving responsibility.
No,
You're not
no,
saying I don't take. You take full responsibility,
of
but for
course
that, but someone says you did that. Yeah, that's who I
I
was,
did. Right,
but it's not who I am anymore. And they're going to say,
right.
prove it to me, and then that's up to you to do. You know,
Of
and you're going to
course.
have to just be. And that's why I put that. There's a story in Invincible about the story of Robert Downey Jr. and just how he changed his whole life and became the most well-known, biggest actor in the
Yeah.
world to a whole new generation. Nobody remembers the old version of him, at least not anybody under 50 years old,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And so, you know, there's a whole new version of you waiting to be revealed to the world.
I love that. So I do. I mean, it's liberating because it's like, okay, no, like, but it's also taking radical responsibility of who you are today and being willing to own the past aspects of
Yeah,
yourself and how to move
you're
forward.
you're honoring your life and the power that's waiting to be graced to you.
Right.
It can't give you the power when you feel limited in some way or not good enough or not worthy enough. Everybody is worthy once they see that worth.
Right. So true. So, how do you personally handle criticism or negativity from others when you're teaching such expansive concepts?
How do I personally handle criticism? Like,
Yeah.
what criticism would they have?
So if you ever run into, let's say you have a difficult conversation with somebody, or maybe you have maybe you don't have these moments anymore because you're in these expansive concepts. For example, today I run a doctor's office in my day life, and I had a volatile employee, and how did I handle that? I had to disassociate from the emotion of it and take it. I almost had to go within, take a nice deep cleansing breath and be like, okay, you're having a knee-jerk response, taking a step back, and I'm going to approach her with compassion and respect and handle this moment. And it was able to be resolved. But Rachel a month ago may not have done that. Like, that's where the question is coming from.
So, when I'm teaching this work, my assumption is that people want to learn how to become better versions of themselves. I have no interest in offering this to people who do not want this or don't want to change. But if someone comes up with some questions or some objections with an
Mm-hmm.
open mind, I have no problem with that. I'm happy to explain as long as it takes for them to understand where the misalignment or the misunderstanding is with this work. You know, I've worked with thousands of people, so I know this works at the very core. It's the same with every single human being because it's a fundamental concept of how life is creating with us. So if they don't want the information or they want to, they're welcome to do that. It's just not what I'm interested in
I like that.
challenging if they don't have the will to move forward. And if that's who, you know, so that's fine. But for somebody with an open mind and really good questions and some objections to where their mind, I can work with that all day long. But it's when if anybody's intentionally negative or criticizing, they're the wrong person for this work or they're not ready yet.
Right, right. I like that. Maybe they're just not ready, and we all have different paths,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
different
So, and
journeys.
yeah, and I have, you know, they can continue on their journey the way they're going. That's up to them.
Right. And I
Um,
like that you're like, no, I'm willing to have a conversation if the person is open minded. It's almost, you know, right now in the political nature that we experience, and we're not talking about politics by any means, but people are so like quick to, "Rawr," and it's like, maybe if we could just take a step back and have an open mind, we wouldn't have such volatile experiences
yeah,
right now.
we
Maybe
we
not.
could have a whole discussion about that, but you have millions of people that have been put into fight or flight, and
Yes.
because of that, they have. their window of awareness is so narrowed just to survival that they're not open to listening to anything else, and it doesn't seem to make sense to them. And it's crazy. Upside down and crazy seems right because they've been sort of moved to believe that's the only way they're going to survive, which is really just unfortunate.
And let me ask you this from a spiritual perspective that we're in the United States and there is this narrow view and they're pushed into fight or flight. Do you feel that spirituality and like your teachings and things of that nature that we're going to be moving from a different spiritual awareness, and these people that are kind of in this fight or flight are going to break over to the spiritual awakening and get out of it?
Depends on how much suffering they continue to be in. I believe that awareness is the answer, but the only way the awareness is going to get in is, this is hard without really getting into this deeply, but
I know. It's almost
you
like the
can't,
collective consciousness of the energy.
you, you can't talk logic to someone who's in fight or flight. No fact, no insight, nothing that somebody does that's heinous will land. It won't land because they're in fight or flight. And their fight or flight is, if I don't keep this person in power, I don't survive. That's the
Gotcha.
thought. And that's the only thought. And
Right.
so that's the essence of fight or flight. And that's been slowly seeped in for the last 10, 15 years. And so now it's like, that's it. So the only way out, is for that, that fight or flight to settle down enough to be able to take in and sort of wake up from the ether and go,
Wait a second.
what's just happened?
Right.
I just voted against my entire self-interest. Like, it's like they don't real. It's just crazy. It's crazy what's happened. But anyways, that's going to take a little bit of time. So
No, I appreciate your answer. It's almost like they're in a state right now that it's going to take time.
yeah, it's gonna take time.
That's it.
Yeah,
I like
that's
how you
exactly right.
answered that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if our listeners were to walk away with only one truth from your teachings today, what would you want that to be? He's like, a lot of
One
teachings,
true.
Rachel. Or whatever you feel is an appropriate thing. We kind of went from an odd segue of, right
Yeah,
now we're
no,
in this collective consciousness of energy,
no,
you know.
yeah. What I would want people to understand more than anything is just how much they are worth every dream, desire, feeling that they ultimately want to experience and have. The universe will continually nudge you towards your infinite potential, towards the fact that you're worthy, towards the fact that you matter, towards you can experience peace and happiness and joy. You don't have to suffer. That's what the universe will constantly tell you. And that's what I want to come out of all my work. I have a quote in the beginning of the book that I open all my talks and speeches with, and it's simply this: if you knew how powerful you really are, you would never stop smiling.
Quote. That's a great quote. So why do you feel like people are just so stuck in not believing, like, in the spiritual realm, we have people work with a lot of limiting beliefs, like fear of being seen, imposter syndrome, fear of being loved. Like, why do you feel? Is it just because of the human condition and how they were raised? And it's like we have to unpack all of these limiting beliefs to get to this infinite potential states. Like, do you have any sense or tap into all of us experience this, and it's
Yeah. So,
scary.
well, that you just said it. It's scary because the unknown is scary. The known is comfortable. And that's why addicts can suffer for years because they
Mm.
know that they've survived, even though it's destroyed everything. They're still alive. They don't believe they're going to be alive without the addiction. And so that's why it's an addiction. So I would say that the reason that more people, there's a lot of people that are, quote, waking up and coming to this, but the reason that a lot of people are not is because the trauma or the experience that the brain is latched onto that says vulnerability equals pain.
Mm.
Vulnerability in my relationship equals pain. Vulnerability at work equals pain. Vulnerability, in going out and not, drinking before I go out so that I feel relaxed is not going to be good enough because there's so many misaligned thoughts with who they are. Again, that's why self-awareness, which brings you to the truth of who you are, unlocks your power and allows you to open up to more of this insight and understanding. And again, that's why I wrote all three books, is to
Yeah.
help people realize where that power comes from. But there is resistance. If someone feels they're not going to survive, they're going to remain stuck. And, you know, years ago, Darwin said that, the key to life, survival of the fittest. It's really the survival of the most aware and adaptable to change, because those that don't change perish,
Yep.
because conditions are always changing in the world. And so if you
That's
want
so
to be
true.
if you want to be on the front end of your life and in charge and in mental clarity and command, then the next evolution of mind is one of consciousness and self-awareness.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. And for our final question, looking ahead, what is your next vision or dream that you're currently working on towards manifesting?
So for me, after I've put out Invincible, I have a foundation called the Eight Wisdom Foundation, which is the number 8wisdom.org, which is dedicated to sharing this insight on self-understanding and self-development with the younger generation so that they have an understanding of who they are and the power of mind and their choice and their decision before they get out into the world. So I'm hoping to someday see it as a required class in high school before you graduate, that you understand how your mind works in terms of how it shapes your reality. Um,
I do have a follow up question since you are
yeah.
working with the younger generation. And this is what I have experienced. Do you find that the younger generation seems to be more inclined towards the spiritual path and more like I find a lot of them are really tapped in, and especially with their awareness, with how the energy is and how they're feeling and able to express themselves. Like I'm fascinated by it.
They're definitely a generation that is more open than the generations of the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. And that's because this work has started to become more mainstream. Obviously,
Right.
when the secret broke in the early 2000s and it was the big rage, there's now all
Yeah.
those people are parents and they've used it their entire life and maybe followed the work of Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle or now some other people that are doing work out there. And so they are more open to this and bringing this into their lives. For me, the only way the species is going to survive is through conscious evolution. It's an
Right.
evolution of mind, an inner evolution or revolution of mind, to understand how our thoughts are really shaping the experience of life. But it's really exciting that they're open to it because uh, hopefully that'll bring about a more clear-headed, passionate, positive vibe in not only our country but the world, because it's really
Absolutely.
gone the other, or it's tried to go the other direction for a while here. So
I think that it's so interesting. When I speak with like my son, he's 16, and he'll say like, "Mom, we have to leave here. The vibes are off." Like, and then he'll get in the car and he's like, "I have to wipe this energy
wow,
off."
wow,
Yeah,
he's an empath. Yeah,
yeah. So it's just like and I totally agree with you. It definitely needs to be in the curriculum of school, of tapping in, knowing, and also even taking what you just said, their self-esteem, their self-worth, and going into the workforce and into society. Oh, I'm so excited for this 8wisdom.org.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
so important. I'm like, oh, we could have a whole conversation about this.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That
no, I
is
think they teach you reading, writing, math, but how about how your mind works and how
right.
critical that is to everything and the whole quality of your experience of life? Whether you
Absolutely.
become, a superstar or a CEO, or whether you just live a nice, calm, peaceful, happy, quiet life, it doesn't matter. At
Exactly.
any end of the spectrum, this works.
Absolutely. Like you said in the
Yeah.
beginning, like no matter what, everybody can tap into this power within. And the amazing thing about your books is that you're teaching people how to access this power and how to become invincible and how to have
Correct.
a limitless life and
Yes.
have all the best experiences because it's all within.
In a step by step format.
Manual. It's
It's a
right
manual.
there.
It's 8 steps.
Everyone, get this book and you will master it. I love it. I want to thank you, Howard, so much for coming on the
Mm.
Spiritual Spotlight series. It truly has been amazing to connect with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Rachel. Appreciate it.